What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. On this episode of the podcast, we are going to look at the idea of making progress and how progress can come in many forms. And the reason being is that I say this because everyone I know struggles at some time or another with this when they're coming back from injury, because you often feel like you're not making any physical progress in your endeavor, in your sport, in the skill that you're trying to develop, because, let's say, pain comes up or your physical capacity holds you back. And I guess this podcast is a little bit more to do with making sure that you're not being too hard on yourself and you're understanding that it does take a little bit of time. And while you're waiting for the physical to develop, you can also look at other things as well, and you can improve on those. And it gives you that extra bit of time to allow the adaptation to happen. So sometimes it does seem like we're not making any physical progress at all in our sport. And as we don't specifically see it, we don't see ourselves lasting longer in training. We don't see ourselves performing better in training. And it feels like that every time we hit the same barrier or same obstacle over and over again. And when this happens, we might start to feel tired all the time. You notice that, as I said, like the pain kicking up early on in training. And it doesn't have to mean that we're not making progress in other aspects, because you're always able to work on your knowledge. You can work on your emotional management, and you can work on your intentions as well. For somebody who's going through an issue right now, that may be understanding what strategies work for you specifically to calm the pain down. Do you, let's say, go for a walk after training? Do you go and take a sauna? Or do you take a bath even? Understanding which strategies work for you is going to help you get back to training faster, and is going to allow you to train more in time. But it's something that you won't notice within the first training because of the physical aspect of it still being slow to adapt. So we have to look at this in other ways as well. We have to look at how the understanding of the environment and understanding how your body adapts, how that actually can be part of the progress, and not just the idea of, okay, I need to run a 5K in 2 weeks. So that's a really simple one. Another one is understanding how much training we can do before the pain kicks up. And does this happen when you increase the intensity of your training session? Or does it come on with time, and does it come on as you become more fatigued? Because either of these, you have to take different paths. You can't just keep pushing on the same path if it's coming on with fatigue. And the same thing is if there's a certain exercise or a certain level of intensity that's causing it, you can't just keep pushing through that. You have to reassess and improve what you're doing. So the more you start to get a grip on these weak points and you start to understand what your strong points are, the better able you will be to manage it going forward. Because with any type of a chronic or long-term injury, it's going to be a long-term process. It's not a short-term process where you just go through, manage it, and it gets fixed. You do have to manage it over time. You do have to improve it over time, and then in time it will improve. And I've been through all of these emotions recently, trying to come back from this knee injury, because, as I said, it happens to all of us all of the time, and the mindset can kind of take over, but sometimes you just need to be able to fight back against it a little bit. And we focus on how we're not back to where we want to be, and that really can become disheartening. The mood can linger, and it can take over your evenings after training, where you're sitting down thinking, like, I can't believe I'm never going to be back to where I want to be. It nearly feels like there's a cloud over you, and then the thoughts start to creep in. Is it worth it? Will I just change up what I'm doing? Maybe it's something different to what I thought, or I should be there already because it's been 5 weeks. You need to become aware of these thoughts, and they can take control, and they can start to dictate your process or progress in the future. And I've seen this all the time, where people jump from one diagnosis to the next, to the next, to the next, and they're continually looking for a new way to fix the same issue, when sometimes they just need to have a little bit more consistency over a longer period of time and find out what's working and find out what's not working. Double down on what's working. So one thought, when you start to get into this mindset, it's going to build on another, and then it does engulf your mind. And although the intention is right, where you're trying to push yourself to improve, if we try too hard, it can really slow our progress. And as a result, then your motivation is going to drop off. So once you have a goal in mind, all you can do is what you can do to help. And once you have that goal and you know what you're trying to achieve, you just control the controllables. So it's really, really important to not be so hard on yourself. Give it a little more time, and you have to have a bit of push and pull. If you're going to push for a couple of days, you have to understand that there has to be a recovery period after those few days. And without that recovery period, you're going to feel like you're just hitting the same obstacle over and over again because you haven't approached it in a different way. Sometimes you do need to change it a little bit. As I said above, is it intensity or is it fatigue that's causing it? And you have to look at this. Is there a certain exercise or a certain movement that causes that? The more that you understand this, the faster that you will improve, but the journey becomes a lot more enjoyable because you have to understand that the body will adapt if you put it in the right situation, or if you put it under the right circumstance. But you need to give it time. You need to give it space. You also kind of have to love the process a little bit. You have to enjoy the journey because there is really no shortcuts on this journey, but there's a lot of dead ends if you go down the wrong way. And instead of that, focus on what are you learning about yourself. Focus on what traits and skills are you trying to hone and improve on. What were your weaknesses a week ago, and how have you improved on those? As well as what are your biggest weaknesses overall, and what's your plan to improve on them in future? What are your strengths, and how can you use them to your advantage? And with time, if you start to ask yourself these questions, you start to lean into it, and you are really consistent with a plan where it's trial and error. You make mistakes and then you improve on it, and then you make mistakes and then you improve on it. With time, you're going to be back to the person that you want to be, or you can be a newer, better version of that person. So I'm going to leave this podcast now. I'm going to make it a very, very short one because I wanted to just nail that point home, that if you are being too hard on yourself, you need to pull back. You need to relax, recover, reassess, and see if there's anything that needs changing. And when there is something that needs changing, small changes. If you're going in the right direction, it's small changes make a big difference as opposed to complete right turns. And just keep that compass pointing in the right direction, keep pushing forward, and you'll be surprised with how far you get. Hopefully that helps somebody today who is going through it at the moment, who's having a tough time with it, because with these injuries, there's always going to be the mental side to it, there's the emotional side to it, there's the motivation, the discipline, there's so much more to them. But if you do stay focused, you will find that it will improve, and you just keep ticking along. So hopefully, as I say, that helps someone today. If anyone has any questions or is dealing with any issues at the moment, I am full right now with clients, but I will be taking them on in the next couple of weeks. So just shoot me a message on Instagram or shoot me an email at info@themobilitytutor.com. And what we can do is we can jump on a call, we can chat through it, see if it's a right fit for you. And if it is, then we can look at talking through a plan in a bit more detail, things that you can work on, looking at what things you are doing right, looking at what things you may be doing wrong. And as I said, in time, getting you on the waiting list to jump on board if it's something that you are interested in. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this podcast, I would love if you could rate it 5 stars at the top. I'm looking to get it up to 1,000 5-star ratings. I'm way off at the minute, but with time, I will hopefully get there. And that's going to be 1 rating at a time. So I would really, really appreciate it if you could do that. But that's all from me today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Robbie Cassidy. You can find me on Instagram at RobbieCassidy_, or you can email me at info@themobilitytutor.com. All right, I'll chat to you all again next week. Have a good one.